Have you ever wondered why you just can't seem to walk away from a relationship that brings you way more anxiety than joy? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the clinical psychology and the actual neuroscience behind why we get stuck in these painful relationship patterns, and, more importantly, how we can finally break free from them.
So why do we keep reaching for the exact people who hurt us? If you've ever felt trapped in one of those exhausting, anxious, avoidant dynamics, it is absolutely vital for you to know that this is not a failure of your willpower. Seriously, it's not. It's actually a deeply wired neurological response. Your brain is just doing exactly what it was trained to do to survive. In this explainer, we'll be covering the invisible relationship blueprint, recognizing relational red flags, the neuroscience of trauma bonds, breaking the anxious avoidant trap, the path to earn security, and building healthier conflict habits. Let's jump right into Section 1, the invisible relationship blueprint, your nervous system's hidden rules. Okay, so let's look at the root of our relational habits. This blueprint we all have was established long before you even had the language to describe it. You can think of your internal working models kind of like those background apps running constantly on your phone. You don't see them, right? But they're directing your entire operating system. They're constantly predicting whether it's actually safe to need someone or if love is conditional, and it's all based on your earliest childhood attachments. When these early blueprints result in an insecure attachment, we tend to see a pretty stark contrast. On one hand, you have anxious individuals who hyper-focus on their partner. They crave constant reassurance just to prevent abandonment. Then, on the other hand, avoidant individuals really fear being controlled, so they prioritize emotional distance to maintain a sense of safety. And man, when these two meet, the foundation is completely set for a really rocky dynamic. Moving on to Section 2, recognizing relational red flags. From love bombing to ghosting. When an insecure attachment meets the modern dating world, we often end up ignoring some massive red flags, honestly out of just a desperate desire to connect. Take love bombing versus genuine affection, for instance. Early on, love bombing totally floods your nervous system with this high arousal that's cleverly disguised as chemistry. It's rushed, it's intense, and it subtly requires you to perform to prove your worthiness. Genuine affection, though, that builds slowly. It feels much more like quiet safety, and it deepens naturally as you actually get to know each other, flaws, quirks, the whole shebang. Another really major red flag to watch for is gaslighting. It's a frankly devastating form of emotional manipulation. It forces you into a state of cognitive dissonance, where you literally stop trusting your own memories, your own emotions, and your own reality. You actually start believing that you are the problem, which, tragically, just tethers you even tighter to the person who's hurting you. And when a toxic relationship finally ends, this fundamental lack of respect often culminates in ghosting. Real participants in an LSU study revealed that ghosting is primarily used just for convenience. It is a profound level of disrespect that refuses basic human confrontation, and it leaves the person on the receiving end agonizing over totally unanswerable questions and battling deep, deep insecurity. That brings us to Section 3, the neuroscience of trauma bonds, why leaving is physiologically difficult. Now, when you combine intense love bombing with sudden withdrawal, your brain actually physically changes. It creates what we call a trauma bond. You get harmed, and then you receive just a tiny breadcrumb of affection, which releases a massive hit of dopamine in your brain. This pattern of intermittent reinforcement makes leaving physiologically identical to withdrawing from a chemical addiction. So if you're struggling to leave, you aren't weak. Your brain is literally fighting a chemical dependency. Healing from this requires some serious physical recalibration. As Dr. Peter Levin outlines, recovery from these toxic bonds means restoring your nervous system's ability to pendulate. Now, pendulation just means you can safely move toward closeness with someone else, and then safely swing right back to being grounded within yourself without completely collapsing into panic. It's about learning to ride that natural, healthy rhythm of connection again. Here is Section 4, breaking the anxious avoidant trap, moving beyond the pursuer-distancer dynamic. If you find yourself stuck constantly chasing a partner who just keeps withdrawing, research points to using what we call soft strategies. Let them step back without making them feel guilty, try to frame your requests logically rather than with really high emotional heat, and use shared activities to build closeness side by side. That works a lot better than forcing intense face-to-face conversations that just trigger them to shut down entirely. But look, if the relationship is truly toxic, you must learn to hold the both-and truth, a concept formulated by therapist Annie Wright. You can absolutely validate that the magical beginning felt deeply real to your nervous system, you didn't make that up, and you can accept that the ending was genuinely harmful.
You don't have to erase the good memories just to validate the bad ones. Both can absolutely exist at the same time.
Moving into Section 5, the path to earn security, rewiring your relational patterns.
Okay, so here's the incredibly empowering news. Your childhood blueprint, it is not a life sentence. No way. Dr. Daniel Siegel calls this earned security. Thanks to neuroplasticity, this is the deliberate process of actually updating those internal working models in adulthood. You achieve this by practicing stable emotional regulation and putting in the hard work to teach your brain that love doesn't have to be chaotic to be real.
The real secret ingredient here, though, is that the nervous system learns safety through felt experience, not just intellectual insight. Achieving this security doesn't happen just by, reading a bunch of self-help books. It requires real, corrective relational experiences. That means engaging with a safe partner, a trusted friend, or a therapist, where your nervous system physically learns that vulnerability is not going to immediately lead to abandonment.
And finally, Section 6, building healthier conflict habits, navigating rupture and repair. Because secure relationships definitely aren't conflict-free, we have to keep a close eye out for Dr. John Gottman's 4 Horsemen. Decades of research show that predicting relationship failure essentially comes down to the frequency of 4 very specific behaviors during a conflict. Those are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. If these 4 are your default settings, the foundation of your relationship is actively eroding.
Replacing those destructive patterns means engaging in active repair. This includes following some practical frameworks, like these 6 steps for granting forgiveness when those inevitable ruptures occur. You have to acknowledge your pain, be really specific about your future limits, just give up the right to get even, let go of the resentment, communicate that forgiveness, and, if it's safe to do so, work toward reconciliation.
Ultimately, you have to make repair a practice, not just a one-off event. Securely attached couples aren't the ones who never ever hurt each other, they're simply the ones who consistently practice repair. And hey, if this explainer helped you understand your situation better, consider subscribing to Relationship Vault for more psychology-based relationship advice and healing content.
Escaping these toxic cycles absolutely demands immense courage. It asks you to walk away from that familiar, high-arousal chemistry of chaos. But in doing so, it allows you to choose a handmade, secure, and truly meaningful life over a beautiful, addictive trap. Remember, you have the power to completely rewire your blueprint. So ask yourself, are you ready to stop just surviving your relationships and start actually building your security?